And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We know that next week at this time, the Eagles will have been on the practice field all week long for the most part. They report on Tuesday. They practice Wednesday and Thursday. And, of course, right now, Football at 4 takes a look at all the big storylines heading into camp, which begins next week. Andrew DiCecco is in today for Adam Kaplan for today's Football at 4, and he has a plethora of great stuff over at InsideTheBirds.com to get you ready for Eagles training camp. We're going to preview all of the top storylines and battles that he'll be watching as training camp opens on Tuesday with practice on Wednesday. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. What is going on, my friend? How are you?
How you doing, Mike? Good to talk to you.
Yeah, man, this time next week, the Birds will be probably just coming off the practice field. I think they're off Friday, actually, but 10 o'clock practices next week. Let's get into some of the big storylines that, Andrew, you'll be watching, all the battles. And let's start with that right guard spot. Tyler Steen taking on Kenyon Green, taking on Matt Pryor. That's like the one story on the offensive side of the ball for starting playing time that everyone's going to be kind of watching as we enter training camp next week. How do you handicap those three?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Tyler Steen, and he played 316 snaps last season for the Eagles, entering his third season. This is really do or die for him this year. And what I mean by that is he had a chance last year, and he had the ankle injury, and Mekhi Becton was able to overtake him. Now he has a golden opportunity. He is the favorite behind him that are going to really realistically be pushing him. Yeah, you have Kenyon Green, and I think Matt Pryor would be the biggest challenger. But I thought Steen did a nice job last year. I really did when he was pressed into service mid-game. That requires a lot of attention to detail and focus from the sideline, and also applying what you're learning on the practice field. He moves well, better than Becton, and I think that when you're pairing somebody between Cam Jurgens and Lane Johnson, you can kind of atone for any sort of shortcomings or acclimation period.
I kind of look at this, see if you're on the same page at all, or am I way off base on this one, Andrew? I look at this similar to 2017, where basically Sayamala started. He was the guy they wanted. Steen is the Sayamala. They went to Warmack, tried to see if he could do it. Green would be the Warmack, and in the end, they said, we have Pryor in our back pocket. That would be Wisniewski. So it wouldn't be crazy to suggest that we might see all three of these guys get a shot at some point this year.
I mean, barring injury, I'm expecting Tyler Steen to be that guy. Obviously, the sample size is pretty small, but talking to Tyler last season and really being able to see him in the preseason and really even in the regular season, that Saints game really stands out to me as the best sort of description as to what he can do. It really illustrates, I should say, what he can do. He moves well, and then that Saints game, it was like him and Fred Johnson on one side of the field, and the offense didn't really miss a beat. You can look at certain moments throughout the season where I thought that he was able to step in and really acquit himself pretty well. So I'm not necessarily looking at it as a platoon situation.
I would tend to agree with you in terms of I think Steen is fine. I think Steen will win the job. But that it just kind of seems similar the way that these guys profile, that they have that in their back pocket. We'll see that right guard spot. It will be one of the big stories on the offensive side of the ball. Before I shift to the defense, because it seems that that's where all the stories seem to be, is there another offensive battle that is a battle, or is the offense pretty set after that right guard spot to you?
So it's interesting because this is a minor one, but something I'll be keeping an eye on because I like watching training camp battles unfold, and I know a lot about these players. So it would be wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5, or maybe even wide receiver 6, because beyond A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jahan Dotson, there's a lot of questions, right? Johnny Wilson would appear to be the favorite. He was the number 4 wide receiver last year. He played 369 snaps, 34% of the defensive snaps, and he's somebody who does a lot of the dirty work, the grimy work that Zach Pascal did in 22, that Olamide Zaccheaus did in 2023. It takes a certain type of mindset to be able to pull that off. He also has a unique dimensions, right? He offers 6'7", crazy, athletic profile and then the wingspan and all of that. But for me, I think that his name should be written in pencil at the moment because they want to see what he can get separate with more regularity, be able to help and factor in contested catch situations, and really take that next step and evolve in his second season.
Yeah.
But then you have Anais Smith. Anais Smith is a predominant slot player. So if he's going to stick or at least make a serious run for a roster spot, one would think that he's going to have to showcase a lot as a punt returner to show that value and really trying to establish that staying power. And then, of course, you have Danny Gray, who I've talked a ton about, and 4.33 speed, so he adds a different element than any of the players who we're going to be sort of chronicling here. He can get vertical, former third-round pick, and he was on the practice squad last year, so obviously familiarity with the system, with wide receivers coach Aaron Moorhead. And the last player that I'll mention is Terrace Marshall. Terrace Marshall has a bigger body, not quite to the degree of a Johnny Wilson, not many receivers do, but he can kind of do similar things. And I thought he had a really good spring, definitely more so than Johnny Wilson, who missed some time during the spring, at least for the media-attended session. So I'm kind of looking to see at Mike how that all transpires.
And Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. These are some of the top general eve of training camp things and storylines that Andrew and everyone will be watching. He'll be covering it live from the NovaCare complex. Ringo versus Jackson, is that the battle? Is there anybody else in that battle? Handicap that one as you enter camp next week.
No, that's going to be primarily Kiwi Ringo versus Adoree Jackson, and Kiwi Ringo enters with as the odds-on favorite. He has the inside track, entering his third season with the Eagles and second season in a row working with Vic Fangio, Christian Parker, the Eagles defensive backs coach, Roy Anderson, the cornerbacks coach. He liked the continuity there. And Keeley in the spring talked about honing in on his technique, which really, raised my antenna because it's never been about the athleticism with Keeley Ringo. It's always been about the technique. And he's such a young player. I think folks forget that he's just 22 years old. So if he's able to put this together, the Eagles could really have something there. Now, the problem is, or I should say the biggest question, Mike, is how would he handle being targeted heavily each and every week? Because teams aren't going to throw the football to Quinyon Mitchell's side of the field. And so it puts a unique amount of pressure on Keeley Ringo to make sure that he's staying assignment sound. And what we've learned from Vic Fangio is that's what he prioritizes and covets from his defensive players. So that's going to go a long way, obviously, in determining who starts between Adoree Jackson and Keeley Ringo. Adoree Jackson has played in 97 games, I believe, in the NFL. So I think you like that experience, but I think Keeley Ringo, knowing how much time and effort and really just manpower the Eagles have invested in him, I think that obviously he would be the favorite.
All right, Andrew, I think this one's going to be fun. It will be to see the evolution of Jalix Hunt, and then he will be trying to hold off two veteran players who were once the young guys that people were excited about. Not old guys by any stretch, but Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche. How do you see that triangle happening and working out as camp begins?
Well, Jalix Hunt is going to start for all, by all accounts. Something would have to go, drastically wrong for that not to happen. But the question becomes, this is a player who played 241 regular season snaps. What's he going to look like in an expanded role? Now, you know me. We've talked a lot about this. I think very highly of Jalix. I think he's going to transition to a starting role pretty favorably, but that's just my assumption based off of what the information that we have. And the information that we have is a player who factored into the rotation eventually about halfway through the season. He made an impact in the postseason. I thought he got active and was willing against the run. So you see a lot of the qualities that suggest that it can translate into a much more prominent role. And he was asked to add weight to his frame this year, and he's been throwing around weight that he wasn't throwing around last season. I sat down with his trainer, Corey Clark. So also all the signs are there. But then you look at Ojulari, who I think can be a really good third edge, edge player, and he's going to be obviously needed in this rotation, but he's got to be able to stay healthy. That's been the big hiccup with him. It's never been about ability. It's been about availability. 22 career sacks, 25 years old, obviously has a lot of familiarity with his teammates there. So I think you feel pretty good about at least where he stands as the third edge rusher. And then the question becomes, Josh Uche, what do you have there? Because it's kind of a polarizing player. You have to go back to the 2022 season where he had 11.5 sacks. Of course, the last two seasons where he split time with the Patriots and the Chiefs, he had 5 sacks. So which version are you getting? And he's clearly a situational player. The year in which he had 11.5 sacks, he played 38% of their snaps for the Patriots. So I think as a fourth edge rusher, he'll be just fine.
The next question, and I don't even know how we answer this, so I'm interested to see what you bring to the table here, Andrew. Jahad Campbell versus who? What's his role? Will he be ready? What are you looking to see from him? Will he even be out on the field on Wednesday? Give us some thoughts on Campbell and how this kind of materializes.
Okay, lots to unpack there. I'm expecting him to be around on Wednesday on the field. Participating? Well, no. I mean, Vic Fangio said sometime in August, so I think they're not going to rush his timetable. They want him to be operating at, peak levels. But what you see from him is just a player who I think has a skill set that embodies what it means to be the new age NFL defender. He has the length, he has the fluidity, the sideline to sideline range. He can cover tight ends and running backs and all those things that you look for. And he also can rush the passer a little bit, which may be his easiest path to playing time, because there's a lot of responsibilities that I don't think are fully appreciated that are placed on the shoulders of linebackers in Vic Fangio's system. And because of that, it may take a little bit of time to acclimate, especially if you're joining late and you're behind the eight ball a little bit. The player that I think is going to reap the benefits most is Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who the Eagles are really happy with his development, and smart player, instinctual, doesn't have the measurables, but I think he's very sound, assignment sound. And Vic Fangio has praised him going into that divisional round playoff game, and so that carries a lot of weight. So I think he would be the next in line. They don't have a lot of optionality there. That's really a place that I thought the Eagles were going to address before training camp, just to simply add another body before camp. Smile Mondin is there, the rookie linebacker from Georgia, but he's mostly, in my opinion, going to be a special teamer this year. So, yeah, I think to answer that question, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. would be the player to highlight there.
All right, Andrew, the last one would be Drew Makuba, the second-round pick, obviously, at the safety position against basically Sidney Brown. And is there anybody else in that room? I guess that one is, would you say, wide open, or do you have a favorite? Handicap that one.
Vic Fangio also threw in Tristan McCullum. He threw his name into the mix. But to be honest with you, I don't view it as totally wide open. It's going to be a competition. And Drew Makuba, the rookie, has to get into camp. He has to sign first. But, you don't draft somebody in the second round unless they have a hard time picking up the defense. You don't draft them where you draft them and have him sit on the bench. He has an ability and a skill set and a body type that kind of reminds me a little bit of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And he has a knack for taking away the football, versatile, instinctive, all the qualities that Vic Fangio looks for in a defensive back in his system. Doesn't have the biggest frame. He doesn't have a lot of size, but he does play with some physicality. Versus Sidney Brown, who is a player who hasn't really gotten much of a fair shake. He got injured at the end of his rookie year, didn't have a full off season, and now he does. But he is probably going to have to alter the way he plays the game to coincide with the way that Vic Fangio likes his defensive backs to play. He's sometimes plays unrestrained. He's primarily a box safety anyway, but he plays with his hair on fire, and sometimes that leads to feast or famine play. And for him to have confidence in him to go out there and execute the assignments, he's going to have to be a little bit more assignment sound, a little bit more disciplined on the field. And then Tristan McCullum is a player who I've talked a lot about. He is assignment sound. He does play within the structure of the defense, and he quietly he makes plays. He's more often than not in the right place at the right time, and there's something to be said for that.
Andrew, of all the things we just talked about, is there something else, the thing that you are most intrigued by when Wednesday comes around?
I kind of want to see if the running backs are going to be more involved in the passing game, right? Because that's just the first thing that popped in mind. The reason why I say I'm not looking to see the offense as a whole is because sometimes you can't glean that in training camp. Oftentimes you can't. In the preseason, you can't either. We won't really know what the offense as a whole looks like until the regular season. But the running backs, when you talk about evolve, and you heard that word, that was the buzzword in the spring. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean something drastic one way or the other, but it could mean some different wrinkles. And different wrinkles, utilization of the middle of the field with someone like a Dallas Goedert, maybe Jahan Dotson, running backs in the passing game. This, for me, is something I'm looking forward to seeing because Jalen Hurts hasn't utilized the running backs in the passing game. And you have someone like Saquon Barkley, who we saw catch that wheel route against the Packers in week 1. He obviously can do it and do it at a high level. Will Shipley is the guy for me who can add a different dimension, a unique dimension to the offense, because while Kenny Gainwell was very adept at catching passes, Will Shipley is explosive. He brings a lot of juice, and he turns upfield when he gets the football, and you can probably move him around formations and feel pretty comfortable in doing so. So that's what I'm looking to see. How are they going to utilize the running backs as it pertains to the passing game?
It all starts next week, and, of course, the guys from Inside the Birds will have plenty of coverage on InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast, and right here on Football at 4. Andrew DiCecco pinch hitting today for Adam Kaplan on a Happy Hour Friday, giving you all the things to look for at next week Eagles camp. All right, Andrew, appreciate you as always, pal. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Mike. You as well.